We'll call the City of Hawarden regular City Council meeting to order. It is Wednesday, August 14th at about 5:33 p.m. All are present except for Mayor Porter and Jacob tonight, but we have a great fill-in for him. So we will go in and start with agenda item 1A, which is approval of the July 24, 2019 council meeting minutes. Those are in your packets.
So move.
We have a motion by John and a second by Tim. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 1B is approval of the August 14, 2019 claims for payments. I will start to my left with Rob for questions.
No questions.
Jen.
No questions.
John.
None, thanks.
Tim.
No questions.
I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Tim. Do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
Seconded by Jen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 1C is open business from the community. Talkative crowd tonight. We will move on to agenda item 2A. We have a couple things that the mayor has left for us for his report tonight. He would like to thank Dr. Monty Harvey for his past 40 years of medical service to our community. Besides his work as a physician, he has been giving back to our community by serving on the West Sioux Community School Board and our city council. We wish him the best as he retires, with his last day being at the clinic August 30th. Second, school will be starting at the end of next week. Please drive carefully, as students will again be walking and riding their bikes to and from school. Our school has some new teachers and administrators, so please welcome them to our community when you get a chance to meet them. Council members, please get me your city administrator evaluation forms, and he will tabulate those and get over to Mike. Good luck to the former West Sioux students that graduated last spring and will be going off to college or work this fall. We will miss you around town and hopefully see you in the future. Congratulations to the Historical Society on 40 years as a great organization for our community and all of their volunteerism. And Iowa Water and Wastewater Workers Week is August 18th through the 24th. Next will be staff reports, and we will start with Mike.
Just a couple things. We're working with the Iowa DOT on putting up some no parking signs from 9th to 12th streets in the Casey's area. Avenue E all the way through town is no parking zone. When Casey's moved, there was no signs put up. The DOT has to put them up. So met with them this week, got an email back that they're going to put up some signs in the next couple of weeks. This was the last week for the swimming pool to be open. It'll officially close on Saturday. It's been a very good season for the pool, and we thank the pool manager, Jalen, and all the lifeguards for their efforts this year. The street crews will be patching and painting up by the high school by the end of this week or early next week to get that area all ready for school as well. That's all I have.
And what times does the pool close on Saturday?
I believe they're closing at 4:30, and then they have a bunch of stuff they got to take down and clean up before they're officially done.
Okay. Travis.
Contractor work has been starting to wind down on 9th Street. City crews are going to continue to make connections at the residents' existing meters. I'd like to thank the residents that live in that area for their patience and understanding for the work that needed to be done. They had to deal with a lot of extra traffic, machinery, and workers taking up space in the street and the right-of-ways. New light poles are being installed on the west side of Central Avenue, as well as the concrete work is kind of coming on right behind them as they set the poles. I'm still optimistic that that part of the work will be done before Labor Day, although there may be some finishing up to do right after. And then resurfacing will begin after Labor Day. Painting will start the crosswalks in town and on the side streets of Central. Central Avenue, we'll wait to paint that after the resurfacing. Footings are being dug. They just finished them today for the new zip line in the park. I anticipate that that'll be ready to use by Labor Day. As you may notice, the common theme here is get everything ready for the upcoming Big Sioux River Labor Day celebration. This is not only a time to have fun with the many activities throughout the weekend, but also gives us a chance to showcase our town. So we're going to do what we can to have everything ready.
So possibly before the next council meeting, we'll be able to try out the zip line.
We could even meet over there, yes.
Right.
As long as you're under 12 years old.
Is there a limit?
Oh, it's made for like kids 5 to 12. I mean, by the middle of the zip line, you're about a foot and a half up there. You-
I thought it was for everybody.
When we were up in Alexandria last year, I rode on one of the very same things, so you can try it, just.
There's a 300-pound limit.
There is? Oh, well, there's a 300-pound limit, so.
It is designed for younger kids, but
Yeah.
it'll handle.
Young at heart.
How
Yes.
high is
Okay.
it going to be?
It starts out, you get on a pedestal, and you sit on a disc, and it goes down. You'll hit the other side, and it'll bounce back about halfway through the ground. What are your foot and a half,
Couple
2
feet
foot off the ground?
ground.
So,
Okay, we'll move on. Pam?
Yes, just helping Jacob get some audit papers ready for the auditors coming next week.
Okay, thank you. Larry?
A number of things. Meetings have been, actually, a great number of meetings over the past few weeks. Iowa Workforce Development, Iowa Economic Development Authority, Iowa Area Development Group. I made a trip actually down to Des Moines to meet with both of them. Also been working here locally with our Chamber Retail Committee about some stuff in downtown. We had our first ever CEO General Managers meeting with 4 of our industrial individuals here in the community, industrial companies. That was successful. We're going to start holding those quarterly. Also have been involved in the Hawarden Table Talks and the Hawarden Involvement Committee. Prospects, did a prospect trip to Minneapolis, St. Paul through our partnership through Northwest and Iowa Development. Also various meetings with housing and multifamily housing developers. And then did a prospect tour of one of our local industrial buildings here with a client. We're working on some additional promotional materials for the community, also doing some prospect research of people to reach out to and try to attract to our community. Also been meeting with some building owners about prepping their buildings for lease and sell in downtown. I do want to thank for all the help that we've had on getting the website on the economic development side of things updated, and we have finished our business visits for this quarter, so we'll be reaching back out in another 30 to 60 days, or sorry, in another quarter to 6 months, we'll be reaching back out to those same businesses. That's it.
Okay. Corey?
Just a couple things. One, I'm reiterating on what Travis had said about we're showcasing our community, so we're going to go out and really look for different nuisance abatements that are out there that we need to get abated, make sure people are mowing their yards and representing, the town as a whole in a positive manner. Secondly, we updated information to the school so they can get a letter and email out to students that live south of Highway 10, have them use the crosswalk that we have by the library. Extended if they don't understand how to use it, we can, definitely go down there and show them and have a little class for anybody's kids or anything so they know when to wait, watch the lights flash, cross. It's about the safest place for the kids to cross that busy highway. And finally, you might see a familiar face run around town. We hired Payne Allen to work as a reserve for us. He's a certified reserve, has worked up in Rock Valley, I think within the last 2 years, and he's looking for things to do on his time off, and so we picked him up as we have Ethan and Ryan both going to the academy here in the first part of September. So Payne jumping on board will actually help us out, and it's nice to have somebody that's familiar with the town, and it doesn't take a lot to get him started.
Good. Moving on to council comments. Anything from council? Okay.
One thing, Travis, with that We talked before about that sprinkler valve, that extra valve if you want it for the water lines. Do we pay for that? One of the community members was asking me about that.
The city will purchase and install the meter themselves.
Is there an
There'll be some,
installation?
there'll be some plumbing that needs to be done by the homeowner to make sure that it comes off
They don't have to buy the valve, or
they don't have to buy the meter.
okay, meter.
Yep. And that, the cost of the meter will be recouped with the base pay throughout the time that it's used, so.
And we won't run the base for 12 months. It'll be run for 6 months when you're using your outside watering system. Like in the wintertime, there won't be a base on that because that
One
won't
of
be
the-
used.
One of the guys was telling me about that, it was kind of pricey, his sewer and water went up quite a bit this year, so he was wondering, and I told him about that. I don't know, maybe we should put a little thing in the mail or something to tell people they could.
Yeah, we can get the word out. We can do it our social media and maybe on our bills that's an alternative to avoid the lawn watering usage also, because off of our water meters is what we base our sewer usage on, so.
Okay, moving on to other agenda items. Number 3, hospital update from Jason Pullman.
Good evening. Couple things I would just like to mention. We just got done tidying up the rest of the organizational plant. The side hill that was an eyesore is finally not an eyesore. So if you haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to drive by it and take a look at it. It actually looks pretty decent and really complements the rest of the organization. We just recently gone through the Department of Inspection and Appeals for recertification for the hospital and the clinic, and also a fire marshal inspection. So those are always fun to have, and so we're done with those and working on different items for that. Flagpole with the help of some city input and guidance. I think we're planning to get that up and operational about middle of September, and so get a flagpole on our campus. We are going to be in October starting a new teleservice, be telepsych. We got a grant through Mercy Health and also 3 other rural facilities that we will be able to provide some needed assistance for people with telemedicine. And we also have the opportunity with the grant that we have to burn up about $200,000 between the 3 facilities. And so the services that we will be providing until the funds run out will be free. So that's a really great thing for us. And then we are also in the search for a director of finance. Jessica Hughes has resigned and moved to Mercy Medical Center as the director of finance there. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce that we have a new nurse practitioner in our clinic. Her name is Karen Robach. She is a local individual that has just gotten through her schooling and has already started and is doing orientation and will be seeing patients soon. So, any questions?
For the urgent care, were you planning on more permanent signage for that, or what was the long-term plan for that?
Well, the long-term plan was to see if there was a need for it, and we were going to test that for 1 year.
Okay.
So far, the volumes have been good, bad. It depends. It's some days we're busy, some days we see 0 patients. So it's kind of feast or famine, and so we were going to give it a full year of assessment and then make that determination of what we need to do for signages. We do have capacity to do that. We thought about putting some signages over the awning that on the front there, and then our signs have the capacity to put in more inserts in there. So,
Okay.
Yep, good question.
Anything else for Jason? Okay, thanks for your report.
Thanks a lot.
Moving on to agenda item number 4 is a presentation by Bridget Durst of Iowa Department of Natural Resources on source water protection planning presentation.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Bridget Durst. I work for Conservation Districts of Iowa and the Iowa Department of Natural Resources as a source water community facilitator. And I'm here tonight to introduce you to the idea of writing a source water protection plan for your city. I have written and had approved 11 plans in the last 2 years. This is the beginning of my third year, so I'm gathering up new communities. And so what we do is we look to the municipalities and the council and the community to address potential contaminant sources in their area that would influence the quality of their drinking water. And Hawarden does get their water from groundwater. I work specifically with groundwater systems, which is basically all of northwest Iowa. So what we do is we look at those areas, we take the data from the DNR, and we bring together a team, a local team. Usually there are a lot of farmers on those teams, but since I looked at your capture zone map done by the DNR, there's not quite very many row crop acres in the area, but that's a good thing. That means that we have moved on from those communities that had a very large agricultural need. And then now we are looking at communities who have more of an urban component to the areas that influence that groundwater that's used for your drinking water. Also in your data, it does show that your nitrate levels, which is a contaminant that we look at commonly and usually foremost because it does have it's a very common contaminant. It's very controllable also, and it's regulated by the EPA. Your nitrate levels are actually getting lower, which I was taken aback. Oh man, this is amazing. So what we want to do is we want to take a proactive approach as a community to install conservation practices, do education and outreach about drinking water, where it comes from, what effects it has on the health of our community members, and what happens if that source does become contaminated beyond a point of use. So it looks like you use a variety of wells, and they're all very shallow. So they are considered highly susceptible. Your system is considered highly susceptible if there were to be a spill or any other kind of large amount of contaminant in the area. They would be very susceptible to that, and then we would have to deal with the repercussions of that. So all of this data is available. It's all public information. You can get it on the DNR website. But what I do is I take the lead on the teams, and I take all of your local information, all of your wants and needs as far as source water protection goes, and I help you create a very easy to read and easy to follow plan. In some communities, they have had a very large urban component as well, and creating these plans has opened them up to other opportunities that have come along with other organizations and agencies that have urban conservation practices available, funding for outreach and for other projects. So what I actually would like to see are there any questions right now? I will go through it really, really fast if you want me to, but any questions yet? Okay, all right. So what I'm looking to do is to help your community not only create these plans, but do that outreach and that education. Not everybody knows where their drinking water comes from, and it's probably really important to know, at least in my mind. So we do a lot of education with the youth. We work with the school districts. We work with, I want to involve my ag partners, but that's not really applicable here. But we do. I mean, you can expand the area and work with your area farmers. It's worked in the past. All I really need from you today is to know if it would be possible, if the city would be interested in committing to having this plan and having it written and being involved in that process. My services are free. The whole program is voluntary. Anyone who is a part of the team is not held accountable for any success or failure, although your successes will be probably publicized. I do love to write a good article. And also, it does help our state. You know, you're just one community in our state, but work exclusively in Northwest Iowa. And I think that historically, we're somewhat underserved, smaller populations. And the more of these communities that we get together and create these plans, the more of a focus the state has on the fact that communities in our area are working together to prevent contamination in their source water. There isn't much water. There isn't much water to use. And so we do need to work together to be proactive, to keep it that way. Like I said, your nitrates are dwindling. Yes, that's awesome. So I'm really, really happy about that. That makes me very excited. But we do want to continue to keep developing these plans and making sure that people, and also we have communities like yours that can serve as examples to other communities who might not be as populated or as in the same kind of position that you're in. For the most part, I'm seeing them go the other way for those nitrate levels. Any questions now?
What towns have you worked with up in this area, just to give us some examples on these plans?
Okay, so Rock Valley, George. Okay, let me go through them. So Rock Valley and George, and I'm working with Lion Sioux Rural Water Systems, the well field they have in Dune, and then we're going to be beginning the plan for their Boyden/George well field. And then I've worked in Pearson and Kingsley, Holstein, Ida Grove. I've worked with Osceola Rural Water System in their system in O'Brien County. And let's see who else I've got. How many was that? Were you keeping track?
No, that's plenty. I was just curious to give us some ideas. I know a few years back you were at Rock Valley. I was pretty sure that you were.
Absolutely, yep. Yeah, yes, and their plan took kind of a long time to develop. They had done a lot of work in the past, and then we were trying to reestablish a lot of that conservation that had happened in that area, because they had installed conservation. Their farmers in the area had protected Creamery Creek or Rogue Creek, that area, and then they watched their nitrate level just drop. And then all of the conservation contracts expired and prices were good, so those practices came out and we watched the nitrates just spike again. So that was a really interesting and a really interesting plan to write, and they did a very good job. So their plan has been approved just recently in June. So yes. Any other questions? And at any time, you can contact any of those communities and ask them their opinion, or how they felt, or how they feel about those plans.
Who approves the plan? Is that the city, or is that a higher agency like state level, or?
So these plans, since I'm working through the DNR, they do have an established 7-step system that has measures that they feel are necessary to have a complete plan. So we follow those 7 steps, and then when the planning process is over and the council or whoever's on the team feels it is complete, then I make sure there's consensus on everything, and then that moves to the DNR, source water coordinator, and she approves those plans, but not after they have been gone over with a fine-tooth comb from myself, a water supply engineer, and a geologist.
So do we become accountable to the DNR then to uphold that each year, or how does that regulation occur?
Yeah, that's a really common question, and it's a good one too. Since the plan and the program are voluntary, there really is no regulating body. It's just that the DNR has, they have oversight of drinking water systems. So the state has allowed them to have this program, and because they have knowledge and they have a long history of understanding these systems. But it is expected for the municipality or the owner of the water system to continue on with that and to continue through implementation and to be revisiting that plan and revising it. It's also a living document, so it's not set in stone. Everything can change, as things develop, if you add a new well or something like that, obviously that's going to go into the regulatory side. But in looking for new water sources, I've had communities make sure that they wrote into their plans that whatever area was going to be used as a well field or a wellhead area would already be looked at to have protective measures in that area. So, yep. Any other questions?
Sign us up.
Sign you up. I have the letter right here if anyone wants to sign it.
It just sounds like a no-brainer. I mean, there's nothing more important than making the water safe for the community, so it's like,
I think it's good for both that and also for just bringing public awareness of where our water comes from. I mean, it doesn't just come out of the faucet. It comes from a place. So, I think city staff would be happy to work with Bridget on a plan. And
sounds great.
so,
Yeah, and I was saying earlier, this is the only thing I do. I don't go out and do, field work or, I only write source water plans. I work very closely with councils to write these plans. And so I am available to do all of that footwork because obviously we're all very busy people and we are all wearing many hats. And so it's a priority of mine to make sure that I'm the one doing the footwork unless there's something that, that is kind of outside of my realm. So I do have a copy of the letter of commitment. I know it was sent in for the packet, but I have one that actually has the right date because you probably want to write your plan, not before 2 months ago. If I could leave that with you, or if we could, typically councils make a motion to commit to that and then sign that letter, but you're welcome to do.
if you want to leave that with me, we can take care of it.
Absolutely. And as of right now, I'm kind of in the middle of negotiating how much involvement I can have in implementation. So one of my goals is to try to get as many things implemented during the planning process. So that's also another thing that I offer. Any other questions, comments, suggestions?
Sounds good. We thank you for coming in and giving us that information, and we'll be looking forward to working together.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Moving on to agenda item number 5 is Resolution 2019-41, a resolution approving the bond purchase agreement for the sale of bonds thereunder. Michael Maloney from D.A. Davidson is with us and will be talking us through this. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. This is nearly the end of the process here. I know you've had the public hearing and then approval of the official statement over the last month as you've worked through on the electric financing. Today, we're locking rates for the financing and the terms, so I just had a brief summary of what we're doing in your handout. Won't take too much of your time, and then happy to answer any additional questions before consideration on the resolution approving the agreement. So the 2019 electric revenue improvement bonds, it's a $2.34 million par amount that we're going to issue. That's going to cover $2.4 million of projects for some additional transmission distribution upgrades, as well as the South Feeder Loop projects that have been identified. Something that I want to highlight here is obviously the rate. True interest cost, or TIC, is the kind of equivalent in our market to APR. And as I've told Mike throughout the process, I kind of shoot straight on interest rate stuff. If rates go up, I'll tell you. If rates go down, I'll tell you as well. We were in the mid-3s when we started the dialogue on this. I called them a week and a half ago and said probably maybe the low to mid-3s. We ended up at 2.93%. You can't time the market, but your timing's very good if you've been following the news. Interest rates have dropped dramatically, and that goes through the municipal bond market as well. So to borrow for 20 years with this is just level debt. There's no funny business here. That's just really good. So the additional piece is that this is redeemable without penalty in 7 years. That's June 1 of 2026 if you wanted to pay this off early or refinance. For those of you that have seen these before, the old standard used to be 10 years. I think the last time I talked to you, it was 8, now it's down to 7. And there's not really any pricing penalty to this anymore. So just giving you some additional flexibility for the future, which is nice with any of your debt that's outstanding. We're going to start paying it right away. So June of 20, interest and principal. Again, we're going to get right into it and start paying it down. And then it'll close in September. So on the 12th, you'll have the proceeds delivered. No meeting necessary. We send you the money, and you guys are good to go on your projects on the timeline as planned. Just the last page, or the second page of this, and then I've got the numbers behind there for you. You'll authorize the purchase agreement today, and then that locks in the rates and the terms. Your bond attorneys, Dorsey and Whitney, will prepare the rest of your loan documentation for your meeting here in 2 weeks on the 28th. And then we'll close shortly thereafter in September, as discussed. So something I just wanted to point out before, just a couple highlights on the numbers. Staff has been very, very helpful through this process. It's the first time we've been in the bond market with Mike, and I know he remarked it seemed to go pretty smoothly. And I wanted to say that's because staff was very responsive for both me and your bond attorneys. You see a little bit of it. I know it's one more thing on your agenda, but there's a lot of behind the scenes. So Mike and Travis specifically, just really timely with getting us information, and that's why it was a efficient, pain-free process. And then look at the timing you got on your interest rates. So kind of all came together there. I won't belabor you on the numbers, just always like to leave them behind to kind of show the work there. On that next page, got to kind of turn it the hot dog way, unfortunately. Couple items under uses, just the 2 projects identified, the transmission upgrades at $1.3 million and the South Feeder Loop at $1.1 million for a total of $2.4 million. If you go to page 2 of those numbers, lots of statistics in that next page. I would look at the second tier from the top. The second line item there is that true interest cost I mentioned earlier, TIC. That's that rate of 2.93%. Again, that's the best way to evaluate municipal bonds for what your all-in cost is. The pricing on the bonds is on page 3. What I think is really useful are pages 4 and 5. Page 4 is the bond debt service, just the annual payments. Once we get going, $165,000 a year for the payments there, and we were looking at closer to $180 when we started. So that's the power of that extra interest savings. What I think is most useful is the last page, though, just for your context. And I know it goes from left to right instead of the other way around, but this joins and is payable on parity with your 2015 and 2016 electric revenue bonds. So overall, those payments are relatively flat until those other series get paid off. And we didn't have to do anything with rate adjustments to cover this. The electric utility is doing well. It's healthy. This was part of the overall capital planning. So again, just continuing to invest in the system and have reliability for your customers. So again, short and sweet. Happy to answer any questions that you have, but otherwise we recommend moving forward with the financing, and just want to thank you again for the opportunity to serve the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from staff or council on that? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for Resolution 2019-41.
So moved.
Moved by John and a second by Tim. Roll call vote, please.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Clucky,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Kurth.
Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 6 is a public hearing on a proposal to enter into a sewer revenue loan and disbursement agreement. At this time, we will open the public hearing. Mike, do you have any comments on that?
There's been no written or phoned-in comments on borrowing the money for that.
Okay, seeing no other comments, I will close the public hearing, and we will move to 6B, Resolution 2019-42, a resolution of authorizing and approving a loan and disbursement agreement and providing for the issuance of securing the payment of $3,510,000 for sewer revenue bonds.
So moved.
We have a motion by John. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jen. Roll call vote, please.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Clucky,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Kurth.
All right.
Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 7 is a third reading of ordinance 712, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Hawarden by amending provisions pertaining to the wastewater utility rates. Do you have anything to add for that, Mike?
This is our third reading to be able to pay off the loan that we're going to have on the sewer plant rehab or the wastewater treatment plant rehab. The rates, if this is passed tonight, it'll be published in next week's paper. Normally, we publish these in tomorrow's paper, but wanted to make sure everything was going to go okay. Go to a base rate of $30 and a consumption rate of $2.25 per 100 cubic feet.
Any comments or questions from council? I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Tim, do we have a second?
A second.
Second by Jen, roll call vote, please.
Clucky,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Kurth,
Aye.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
Bergsma.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 8 is a first reading of ordinance 714, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances by amending provisions pertaining to conflict of interest. Mike?
The next three ordinances are recommended by Iowa Codification to keep our municipal code books in line with state code. This first one, what it does is it's a conflict of interest ordinance, which it changes the cumulative total for a person that maybe has an interest in something the city is doing, who we contract with. The original amount was $1,500. This amount is $6,000. They've increased the amount.
Okay.
Is that per occurrence or per year?
Per year.
Per year. So moved.
We have a motion by Rob. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jen. Roll call vote, please.
Kurth,
Aye.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Clucky,
Aye.
Olson.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 9 is a first reading of ordinance 715, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances by amending provisions pertaining to the solid waste control. Mike?
What they did was they added language at what constitutes solid waste and solid waste control by keeping, if you're a recycler, you have to keep it inside, things like that. They've just added some more regulations and definitions into that Iowa code.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Tim. Roll call vote, please.
Olson,
Aye.
Kurth,
Aye.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Clucky.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 10 is the first reading of ordinance 716, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances by amending provisions pertaining to operating budget preparation.
What this law did that we're passing the ordinance on is kind of change some of the ways that that city's budget. It kind of capped them at 102%. It has publishing requirements and things like that. We're actually waiting for more education on it before the next budget year so we know all the steps. But they added quite a few more things that we got to do. It's for clarity. It's to keep the public informed, things like that. So, but it did, one of the biggest things it did was city budgets, like for next year, you're capped at about 102% unless you go through some extra procedures and public hearings and things like that, so.
You used the word clarity, Mike. Did you find it pretty clear when you read through it?
No, that's why I said we're waiting for more education.
Me either.
It's supposed to create more transparency with the public. The way I had it explained to me was some of these big urban areas that are growing really fast, cities have their property taxes have been going up because obviously it's more infrastructure, more services, more things like that, and they're hoping to contain some of that. But it's kind of hard to contain that when you're growing that fast and, at the 102%. And, yeah, so we'll wait for more education on it.
Okay.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Bergsma,
Aye.
Clucky,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Kurth,
Aye.
Feldhacker.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 11 is a public hearing regarding the final disposition of public property. At this time, we will open the public hearing. Mike, do you have anything for this?
No comments have been received on this.
So moved.
We'll close the public hearing, and we have a motion by John. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Clucky,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Kurth,
Aye.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
Bergsma.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 12 is a list of consent agendas for liquor license transfers and renewals, and all the paperwork is in, or it wouldn't be on here. Do we have a motion for that?
So move.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Before we move into closed session, there was discussion of possibly doing a tour with the Nature Center, either before the next meeting or September 11th. Does it work before, at any specific time for the rest of council? At like 4 or 4:30? 4 would work?
Mm-hmm.
Does that work with everybody
Yep.
else? Can we look at September 11th?
Sure.
Does that work for everybody? We'll plan on that at 4 o'clock. At this time, I'll be entertaining a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Chapter 20.173, which exempts negotiating sessions and strategy meetings of public employees in the collective bargaining process. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
We have a motion by Jen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by John. Roll call vote, please.
Clucky,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Kurth,
Aye.
Feldhacker,
Aye.
Bergsma.
Aye.
We are adjourned.